Hey
No
guys, welcome
worries.
back to the show. I'm super excited because I've got a good friend of mine, Andreas Alaya. He's with Single Family Services, and he's actually dialing in, or I guess connecting in from another country today. And he's actually connecting in with us from Medellin, Colombia. And so, super pumped to have you, my friend. I've known you for years, and I think you've got a very interesting niche, both in real estate and in business, and I want to dive deep into that today because I think, regardless of someone's investing in single family homes, commercial real estate, or operating a business, they're going to get a ton from this. So, Andreas, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here, man.
Hey, how's everyone doing, Mario? First of all, thank you so much for having me on as a guest. It's a huge honor. I know some of the guests that you have, and I'm absolutely here to give value, talk about what I do, how I do it. And I agree because, in 2024, moving forward, everything's virtual right now. It's like a global marketplace. And so, especially with COVID, when everybody started working from home, more people became virtual. So, I'm absolutely excited here to share everything that I have going on, and hopefully the viewers can get value.
Oh, they will. Yeah, and not only did you go virtual, you went international virtual, which is cool. So let's dive right into this. I want to get super deep. I'd like to talk about your story in a little bit, but first, what is it like starting a business in an entirely new country that you weren't even raised in? Like, you're in Colombia, right? You were born in the United States. What is it like to start a business from Colombia doing business in the United States?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of small little things that, first of all, it's never going to be like back home. I think I realized that early on, because the technology and the processes and the speed and the culture. So the first thing I would tell people is that you have to adapt. Like if you're going to take a journey, whether it's to South America or Europe, it's like don't try and say, hey, why aren't things like how I'm used to them? Rather, you have to adapt. So that's number one. Number two is, you're going to have people that are going to support you along the way, and it's not going to be a massive pool of people to choose from, right? That know the culture back in the US. So you're going to be very selective with your team. So it's almost going to be more tight knit, more family, and you have to run a tighter ship because at the end of the day, we're still doing business in the US, right? With US real estate, US properties, and we'll get more into that. But they have to know some of the culture, right? And then the third thing I would say is that, you also have to be informed about the rules, laws, the regulations, in any country you're operating in, right? The work week's going to be different here. The laws, the employees, what they're used to, the holidays. So those are things you want to navigate and also understand and have, people that can explain it to you and break it down just so everything is on the up and up also.
So what came to mind, or basically, what made you decide to take your business and start it in another country versus here in the United States where you lived?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, first of all, it was a personal choice, right? Because, I had traveled here on vacation and, have some family here. And overall, I really saw myself living my life over there, my lifestyle. And I can get into a whole bunch of things on why I love it. So, number one, I would say lifestyle. I really enjoyed it, because we make all these sacrifices, we put in the hard work, the hours, we're and at times you sacrifice a lot of the personal things, right? Maybe you can't go to all the baseball games or the birthday parties or the events or the weddings and whatnot. So I wanted to be in a place where i didn't it didn't feel like work. It's like I love this place, there's nature, I have all my commodities, and overall that was the first thing. Number two, I would say, is from a business perspective, you know the expenses are a lot lower, right? It's a lot
Yeah,
more affordable, right? I guess you would call this a third world country, right? But it's
right.
got a lot of technology and things like that. I mean, my internet's like 400 or 500, MPS, whatever you call it. So, the second thing is, yes, definitely that cost of labor, the cost of living, the cost of, payroll and salaries and things like that. And, you can build out more people. So that was number two, right? You see a lot of companies, cold call companies, or they outsource a lot of things overseas. So I took advantage of that. And then number three it's a quick flight back to the US, right? I'm on the same time zone. I picked Medellin and Colombia because we're on the same time zone, right? Eastern Standard Time. A couple weeks back we were Central Standard Time. So it's not a big difference, right? So I'm
Yep.
on that same time zone. And then there's people that, you know, also come back, right? Maybe they lived in the US, or maybe they got in trouble, or maybe, they could never fully get their citizenship and things like that. So they also know the culture. They know what it feels like to be over there. We can operate, we can call the title companies, we can call the buyers, the sellers, inspectors. So it's not like, I'm working late at night, that's if as if I was in Europe or maybe the Philippines. So I would say those are the three key reasons for sure.
I love it. I actually looked into, I think a lot of us entrepreneurs have done this. We've kind of went down that road of exploring tax benefits and, cost of living and cost of doing business. And I actually looked into a few different countries that were close to the United States that I could take advantage of for tax purposes. And ultimately, I decided not to do anything with that purely because as an American, there are some limits to the tax benefits going outside of the country, especially if you're an American, you have to pay income tax back to the United States, regardless of where you live, unless you want to renounce your citizenship, except for one location. And so, I think of a lot of us have actually explored doing business from outside the United States. You just had the guts to do it.
Right,
Which
right,
I
right.
love. I mean that takes guts. You were born and raised here in the United States. You did business here in the United States and then you moved to Colombia. Can you maybe just talk about, what kind of challenges you had in making that transition to another country?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it is a big challenge, like you say, right? Because at first, you've come here on vacation and and it all seems good, right? But then when you leave, I mean, first of all, it could be lonely, right? That would be
Yeah.
the first thing. Although now I don't feel lonely. Now I feel like, I have all these people around me, my team, all the people I go out with, my relationships, all that. So the first thing I would say at the beginning, it's lonely, right? Because you're used to, going to places and talking to people and, your family and your parents and your friends, all those sort of things. So the first thing is, what helped me is I got connected right away with some other buddies that were in the similar business. And so I think for anybody wanting to take that leap or that challenge is like, make sure that you know some people right away, because if not, it gets lonely. And not only that, but they can guide you through the intricacies of, hey, here's how you do this stuff here. Back home it's like this, but you do it here. So that would be number one. Number two is, in the US, things can get done so fast, right? Things can get done fast and technology and it's up to date and, everything's smooth and streamlined. Here, again, it's slower, right? It's slower, it's more paperwork, it's more politics. People maybe taking off, 4 p.m. People are like leaving the office. So it's kind of like you have a short window to get things done. And what, something that would take you to get done over there in the US, right? You can have a notary come see you, right? Mobile notary. Here you have to go to the notaries. Then you maybe have to wait in line and some procedures and things like that. So the procedures are completely different, right? So that's number two. And then number three would be the culture, right? I love the culture in the US and I love the culture here. I've traveled to a couple, I've been blessed enough to be able to travel to a different cultures and stuff like that. And I can appreciate every culture, but those are my two favorite ones. So the, the pros, right? In the US, it's like, it's just like you gave someone your word. I mean, it's got to get done, right? And they
Right.
have that, inside the US, they have that get it done mentality. Whatever it takes, like even anywhere, right? Like in a restaurant or in a hotel or a rental car place, like people will find solutions. Like their problem solving skills. That's why it's one of the greatest countries in the world, right? United States. And so here in Colombia, right, a challenge is like people don't have that tenacity. It's like, hey, no, we couldn't get it done. I'm sorry. Or like, hey, that's not my problem, right? Like you can have, the valet driver at the hotel, right? And he can help you something with that has nothing to do with his position because it's just kind of like a team thing. Here, it's like, hey, that's not my problem. We couldn't do it. We're closed. That's just the way things are. We can't change the rules. So in that regard, it's kind of like a little bit sometimes frustrating because you're used to this culture back home. So I would say, those are some challenges, but obviously, as you adapt, as you progress, you can, kind of see how to navigate those things and not get frustrated. And a lot of meditation.
Yeah. Now, you and guys, if you haven't followed Andreas, you really should check him out on Instagram or any of the other platforms. He's actually living a pretty darn good lifestyle down there. I mean, literally living like a king. And don't get me wrong, he's crushing it in business and making a ton of money. But like, I just see his lifestyle. I'm like, man, do you know what it would take to live at that level in the United States? It's just unreal. So, it's pretty cool to see him riding around with a driver and having maids and having like just extravagant lifestyle, down there. So he's literally like a king. I love it. Can you maybe talk a little bit about recruiting? We in the United States a lot of times recruit outside to other countries, including the Philippines and some places in the Middle East and obviously in South America and things like that. But you went to the next level and you moved there and then you recruited locally. I mean, how can we do that maybe remotely so that we're not physically going there, but maybe some things that you've learned in your local culture and as a local strategy to recruit?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, recruitment I think is something that all businesses share as a commonality, because for most businesses we all need talent, right? Unless you're like just a one man band. But if anything, real estate, roofers, health insurance, those loans, hard money loans, ERC, all these people, we need human capital, right? So I think this is a key topic. So my first thing would say, the quality that I look for is it's higher, I would say, right? Because I don't want like the biggest, most massive team, but I want everybody to be on the same page and be a part of the culture. So I look for folks that have spent some time in the US, right? Depending on the position that I'm looking for, obviously, but and I can trickle down. But I'm looking for someone that may have lived there or had some experience there and then just decided to move back. One thing I like to find out is, okay, well, you lived over in the US some time. Why'd you come back? Why are you here? Like, why wouldn't you have stayed over there? So I like to find out the reason. And I like to find out the people more geared toward, bringing on to my team would be folks that want to stay here, that have some sort of connection, not some bond, a bond here to being wanting to stay here because then I know I can count on them long term, right? You can find a lot of people and you might find some expats and things like that. But they're probably not going to stick around for that much longer because they can just go from country to country and other opportunities. So I want
Sure.
to find the folks that are living here and that love to live here and have a connection. Now, as far as recruiting, as far as being able to find people, it goes back to I would say social media, right? I would say social media. Facebook's a big one for us. So a nice trick, or not a nice trick, but a nice process that you could do would be to load ads on Facebook, right? There's paid ads and then there's groups. So you can attack both, right? You can do the groups where there's going to be people who are speaking English and those groups geared around towards, native English speakers that are looking for jobs and things like that. And then the other set you can do is Facebook ads, right? You can run Facebook ads, you can run your ad. And what I like to do, what I found most effective is hearing how they speak first, hearing how they communicate. So because you're gonna have a lot of people apply. You're gonna be offering, let's say, a good salary, you're gonna have a lot of people apply, but to be able to sift through some of them, you want them to send you a voice note, right? If for
Yep.
those of you use WhatsApp, that's key. So that way you see how they sound. Give them some questions to answer, right? 10 questions. Where'd you live? Where'd you grow up? How do you know English? What was your last job? Tell me about yourself. What do you like to do for fun? Things like that. And then that way the best ones go up to the top because I mean, if not, you're going to spend a lot of time people applying, and you calling them or emailing them. The best way to go about it is just hear how they sound first, hear how they communicate, and then move from there.
Love that. So Andreas, you just gave me some really good ideas. I believe it or not, I was looking for an employee and I decided a good friend of mine told me that he was recruiting in Mexico. And for
Okay.
the same reasons that you were talking about, time zone, they're very familiar with the culture in the United States versus, India or anywhere in the Middle East or, in the Philippines. They're not quite as familiar with American culture as South American and Central Americans. And so I did post there and ended up hiring somebody in a different region ultimately. But what you just said makes a ton of sense. They have Facebook. You could create a
Right.
Facebook group or join a Facebook group in that country. They're all speaking English, post it there. And now you've got a lot of other people in that country applying directly versus going through an Upwork or going through a Fiverr or something like that, where you're going to be competing against other people. So let me ask you this. What's the exchange rate between Colombia and the United States dollar right now?
So let me check here real time, because it's always fluctuating with with the wars and, we don't have to get into politics, but for right now, for $1, it's 4,000 pesos, more or less, kind of
Mhm.
rounding down a little bit. So that's what it goes for. Yep. And so to maybe I can put it in a context for you. So let's say my rent where I live, I'm gonna tell you how much that is in dollars. That's like $940, give or take, right?
Yeah.
So, and I live in a top tier place. Although rents have gone up and things like that, but I'm in front of, a country club and I'm very close to all the best restaurants and I'm close to all the major roads and I'm close to the metro station and I
In a
can get
major
everything.
city, major
Yeah, in a major,
international city, right? I mean,
exactly, exactly. And this would be considered an A+ neighborhood, just to put it into context for the folks.
yeah,
Here they go from 1 to 6. So I'm number 6
yeah,
in the in
baller
what they call
status, basically.
status level. Yeah.
So with
Yeah.
that, what does it cost? I mean, obviously you pay all your people differently, but if you're going to
Right.
hire somebody to do a high skilled position like an acquisitions role or something like that, if you were to convert that into an hourly, what does that end up converting to? I mean, what would you be paying somebody in dollars per hour if you're going to pay somebody hourly?
Gosh, let me see here. Let me
I know
do
I'm
let me
hitting you
do
with a bunch of technicals, so I'm
no,
putting you on
no,
the spot, but
no, that's perfect. That's perfect. I'm gonna tell you right now, more or less. And because you could pay someone a decent salary with 1,000, 1,500 to $2,000, right? So if they did that, so let's call it, you know, $6, $7 an hour, right, for an acquisition,
really,
right? Plus some bonuses, when they close some deals and things like that. So I mean, that might be less than half, right, than what you would pay someone over there. I mean, a lot, it just depends.
easily.
Like I'm out of touch over there, and someone who speaks English like you and I, who can problem solve, who can talk to things, and who can actually close deals, right? I mean, I've had plenty of people like that
Very
that
similar
for
to
what
what you can pay someone in the Philippines. I mean,
it,
that's almost what you can pay people in the Philippines, which, there's a lot of cultural differences and language differences there versus, where you're at. There's people that are much more familiar with the United States.
correct. Yes, yes, and they're aware of the culture, of their mindset, and they're very coachable. Like
Yeah,
the criteria I look for is someone who's a good person, right? Doesn't have any too bad of a habits. Nobody's perfect. Who's a team player and is coachable. And then obviously the first thing is that they have good communication skills in English. Other than
sure.
that, I don't look for too broad of specific details on them.
Yeah, you can teach them what you need to teach them and what you're doing. So let's talk about a little bit more about what you're doing and what you've built over there. I mean, you've built an investment business, but can you maybe talk about, what you're exactly doing and how you built it?
Yeah, absolutely. So my team looks like this. I have an acquisitions department, about 3, 4 people in there. I have a transaction coordinator. I have a operations manager as well. I have a full stack developer. I have a full-time videographer, that helps me put out the content and film and things like that. Then I have like 2 admins that help me with other miscellaneous things. And then, besides that, I have like other support, from like outside third parties and things like that here in Colombia. So
Yeah.
that's what my team looks like. And then, I have the cleaning personnel and the maids and things like that. But yeah, that's what my main team looks like. And so what they help me with
What are
is,
you
man,
doing though? Specifically, like what's your business? What
yeah,
does this team do?
yeah, exactly. So my team, so we run different marketing campaigns, mainly across Texas and Florida. And we work, with all sorts of properties, but mainly it's single family homes. And so my acquisition team will take the leads. I have my marketing people as well, help me run the marketing, and then have there's administrative people that'll help me sort through those leads, right? Who's qualified, things like that. And then they'll get on the phones and, start negotiating, right? I mean, we've negotiating $1 million homes in California to, lots, $50,000 lots, right? And all in between, the $200,000 homes in Dallas is, or the 400,000 ones in, Bradenton, closer to you, Sarasota. So we're doing campaigns everywhere. Once we get a contract, right, we have our coordinator, our operations manager as well. Just make sure everything goes smooth from start to finish, right? So we really depend on the phones. Being strong on the phone is critical for us because we never see any of these folks. We
Sure.
never see any of the title companies. So when we get the contract, we'll take photos, send inspectors, do showings, talk to realtors, field offers, work with the title companies to clear up any liens. We may also contract contractors to maybe, hey, look, we got to close out this open permit, or we have to fix this foundation. So we'll spend some money, virtually. And on top of that, we have guys locally that can help us go, take contracts, meet with people, shake people's hands, and things like that. So that's what the team does, and it's beautiful. I feel blessed, be able to do it. It does take, strong leadership and making sure everybody's trained and everybody's on board. So I really like to go over with my team in the beginning of the day, 9 a.m. is to go over our core values, right? What are we doing this year for? What are our core values? What are we standing here for? And I could just read off some of our core values, but one of them is to commitment improving our communities, right? So I really like to sell them on a mission, like, hey, this is why we're doing this. This is why we're all here, right? Another one would be camaraderie, right? We can go by far a lot, cover more distance if we go at this together. And another one, just to share one more, is communication is our lifeblood, right? And it says the single biggest problem in communication is delusion and has taken place.
Hmm.
So I want them to be really aware and be extremely professional when it comes to their communication skills because that's our lifeblood.
Love it. So you're basically tying up the homes and then you're selling those homes without actually taking ownership in most cases, right? So you're doing either wholesaling or novations. You're basically selling the contract to an end buyer. And I know that your niche is a little bit different than a lot of others. You actually sell yours on market versus off market. So you're not just selling to investors, you're selling to retail buyers as well in the open market. Can you maybe talk about how that differs from wholesaling and maybe explain the difference between wholesaling and novations?
Okay, perfect. Yes. So I'll start first with our model. Okay. So yes, it's novations, and I like it a lot better than the traditional wholesale, right? So how it's different is we'll launch our campaigns, right? We'll talk to the homeowners, right? The sellers. We have different options, right? If we want to go the wholesale route, it's gonna be a lot more discounted. But what we found is most folks aren't gonna discount it more than like, 20% off, ARV, or 25% off the actual retail value. And
Mm-hmm.
those numbers would work for us. So let's say we get something at 75%. Might not be enough margin for an investor to be able to go and buy it at 75% ARV, and then how do we fit our fee in there, right? So it's very marginal. So what we'll do is we'll tell them, like, we have another program, we have another way where we can get you that money. And what we would do is we would put it on the market, right? And show it to potential families, to potential homeowners. And from that point, we'll get a contract with them. Let's say we agree on a price of 300,000, for example. Sound perfect. We're gonna get you your 300,000. If we have to do any cleanouts, if we have to do maybe close out an open permit or help you move, so there you have to find a way to add value to them because it's still a sizable discount, right? And let's say the home as is, you can probably sell it for 370. right? 370 or 360. And the ARV, call it 400. So there's still a little bit of room. It might not be in the best condition, but it'll pass the traditional financing. So they're like, okay, you handle all this. I'll take the 300, right? So from there, we'll take it on and put it on the market, right? With our brokers, with our broker partners. And from there, the homeowner is aware, right? You always want to make sure that they're aware, they disclose, because you're going to be able to get families in there. But let's say we go through that process, they're fine, broker's on board, it's listed, we have the professional photographer, we have the everything on the MLS, everything, right? That's the main difference, right? From right there is because if you wholesale it, typically you're selling it off market,
Right.
right? Typically you're selling it off market to an investor. But the route that we take is we want to sell it to an end buyer to be able to maximize what we can sell it for and to be able to actually maximize to what we can buy it for too, right? Or contract it for.
Sure.
Because again, there's not going to be so many opportunities to buy stuff at 50. We'd all love to buy 50 cents on the dollar. But those do come up, right? In every market you find deals like that. But so we take it on the market. And then from there, let's say someone's interested in making an offer, right? So we have it listed for 370. Let's say we get an offer for 370, right? 370. At that point, what we'll tell the homeowner is like, okay, perfect. We've gone ahead and we found a family that we want to work with. And at that point, right, if you look at the word novation, is just to replace, right? To take. So we'll replace our original A to B agreement with the seller, and we'll have the seller sign a B to C with the buyer. So the seller's the B, we novate, we change out our agreement for that 370. Call it, we spend, I'm just going to do quick math here. Call it that off that 370 price, I'm just going to use about 4.5% to cover all fees and things like that. So 370, I'm going to round up minus $17,000 minus the 300 that we had it for. So we'll be able to make that spread of $53,000.
Nice.
So that's how it works. The title companies are love them, because it's a lot easier. The lenders are fine with them because the seller on records in contract with the buyer, they can get it financed. The fee is being paid out from the seller's proceeds. So the lender's fine with it as well. They don't have to finance any wholesale fees or anything like that. They won't do that either way. And then from there, we have a happy seller, right? Because we got them their 300 net, right? We made 53 in the process. The buyer's happy because they're getting a new home and it checks out and it's where they want to live. The seller's happy because they didn't have to deal with any of that. Maybe they were owner occupying it, but they didn't have to deal with anything. Or maybe they were, out of state. Okay, we handled it, the lockbox. Or maybe we helped them paid off a tenant, right, to leave and clean the place up. Or also maybe they're fine with that because maybe we did some minor improvements to the property. So at the end, if we don't perform, well, actually, not if we don't perform, but they see we're invested in it also. So they're
Sure.
like fine with doing, this sort of partnership. The way it differs from a traditional wholesale is, for most wholesalers, be quite frank, they don't even tell the seller that they're not the end buyer. Some do, some don't, and it's whatever. But most of the time, you're telling, hey, yeah, we're the end buyer. Then you have to sell it off market. Now you have to blast it out to investors. Investors are gonna, have to have some margin, because again, they have to make money. Everybody's got to make money in the way. Versus these other folks that are buying it, they don't care about their equity and things like that for the most part. Like they're just happy with, finding a home for their family, for the kids, close to the nice school, and versus the investors just like number driven. And so another thing is different that it goes on the MLS, which in my opinion is the best way to sell any property. So you have
Sure.
the maximum amount of people seeing it. Rather, for wholesale, it's typically off market, off the MLS, although some wholesalers do put it on the MLS. And we've sold on the MLS cash as well, right? It doesn't always have to be financed. And sometimes on the MLS, even though it's on the MLS, you might find an investor and that's your only buyer, but those investors typically pay more as well.
So, how do I do this with mobile home parks and commercial real estate? That's what you've got me thinking is like, okay, clearly it's doable in the single family world. It's happening and it's happening, all around the country in the
Right.
United States. So, how do I do novations with commercial real estate. Is that possible?
I would say it's definitely possible. Yeah, absolutely, it's possible. It's just coming to first, I would say want to be transparent with the seller and tell them what your game plan is, right? You can tell them, look, this is my team and I. We buy mobile home parks, we operate mobile home parks, we've sold mobile home parks, we broker mobile home parks, right? All of the
All
above.
true.
So
Yep.
yeah, you're a professional, you have ancillary services for mobile home parks and all those sort of things, right? And you tell them, look, we have different models on how to actually get you the money, right? Or close out the purchase, right? So the first is, you can tell them, look, I have cash, I buy with my partners, we hold it, we'll operate it, right? What I like to do for them to be fine with it is sales. It all comes down to sales, right? But it's
Right.
just showing them that okay, they have a price. Let's say the mobile home park is worth $1 million, just to make numbers easy, right? And they
Hmm.
want 850. They want 850 or 800, right? Again, there's not a lot of room. Is they're giving you 20% off, which is, you appreciate it.
Sure.
This might not be something that you want to keep, and hold and things like that. Say you have about 50, I don't know what the closing cost could be, maybe 50, 60, 70,000, somewhere around there,
Sure.
right? Just round, round numbers. So you have a little bit of room. If you put that on the market, right? And it's worth actual $1 million, like you came into a good deal and it's worth $1 million, someone's willing to pay you that. You tell them, look, there's a way I can get you that 800,000 because if I was buying it for me, you were negotiating back and forth. Maybe you wanted to be at 650 or 700, right? In this case, they'll take 800. Maybe you wanted at 700,000. It's like, look, there's a way I can get you more money, and that would be that we work with other group of investors, right?
Yeah.
And you would take care of like the phase one, the surveys, the realtors, the listing, all these sorts of things, and then you would put it on the market, right? And obviously, then you would look at your contract and how you have it structured and things like that. But that's the conversation we have with them. Ideally, inside your contract, it says that, look, in the event that you want to buy it yourself or close on it, right? Maybe you found something interesting, you looked a little bit deeper into it, you decided you wanted to buy it, right? Or that you can novate it and then find a third party buyer, which basically that it is, that you would cover any and all expenses that would come out of dealing with a third party, that you would be assisting in it, and that you're ultimately doing a service for the seller. And if they're fine with that, you put it on the market and, you find buyers to work with. And then in case you do come up with one, you take your contract and then you look at it. Okay, you have the language, then you prepare another contract
Hmm.
from B to C with that buyer, and then you would collect your fee. That's how I would see it.
Dude, I think you just made me a ton of money.
I'd love to
because
hear that, man. Yeah.
because we have a brokerage, right? So we
Right.
broker mobile home parks. We also have an investment business, which is our main business, where we buy the mobile home parks and hold them. But there's some gray area in there. I should say that there's some properties that kind of fall between the brokerage and the investment company. They're a discount, but not quite enough of a discount for an investor buy. Obviously, everything that we're selling is to investors, but I guess you could say there's not a big enough discount for us to make a large enough spread to tie it up and jump through those headaches of doing full due diligence and then finding out, um, if we can find a buyer within that short window. This kind of kills a lot of that, right? So we could basically avoid having to broker it as well as avoid having to buy it, still provide a service to a seller and find a good deal for an end buyer as well, and not have to be that middle guy that nobody really understands the structure except for you, which I think, like you explained, a lot of times wholesalers don't explain to the seller or the buyer the role that they're playing in the deal, which just makes it a more complex deal, especially in commercial real estate. And
Right.
so basically, you just complete all the due diligence, all of the prep work, team up with a broker, take it to market, swap out yourself for the end buyer, and basically make the fee in between for it. Full disclosure, full exposure as well. So you're not having to just work within your database of buyers that you've built up. You can expose it to the public, which means you get the maximum exposure and buyers to compete against each other to to pay the highest price for it. So I think you just made me a ton of money, man. and
I love
I'm
that, man.
and
You got it down.
I hope a lot of people are paying attention to this, regardless of the property type that you're investing in. This is something that I think we could all make a lot of money from, and not a lot of people are doing it. I mean, I didn't even know what a novation was till probably 12 months ago when Andreas explained it to me. But there's because I'm so my background from real estate was, especially in the single family world, was really when people were doing traditional wholesaling. So that's my
Right.
understanding of, what you can do. And so being able to do these novations is pretty sweet. And I'm gonna have to get with you offline and figure out how to do this, because there's a lot of money on the table. There's a lot of deals that are like marginal or not necessarily attractive for me due to, geographic location, size. There's a lot of smaller parks that just doesn't even make sense to broker. But, here we could probably make a little bit more money than brokering them too. So I love it. So let me ask you this. Are you getting deals done? I mean, I hear a lot of people in the real estate market right now, especially in wholesaling and flipping. They're just saying, "Man, there's no deals. There's no deals because the market's softened." Softened? Are you getting deals done?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the last deal we closed was Friday, right? And we got a couple others scheduled to close this week. There's always going to be challenges,
Sure,
but just looking at through my stuff right now, I mean, we have, I would say about 17 properties that are in the queue, right? They're not all assigned, they're not all in escrow, but we're working them, right? We're working them. Some of them are just looking at my spreadsheet. And so it's about them. Some of them are pre-marketing, some of them are in escrow, some of them are active.
sure,
So more or less, it has become more challenging because of the interest rates, because of the uncertainty, because of the wars, because of politics. So, people, right, where they're like, if I sell now, where do I move to, right, with those low interest rates? So, but in every market, there's a deal. So, yes, we're absolutely still closing deals. It has become more challenging. So, we're trying to navigate here the headwinds and see what, election year is coming up. So, things always change there. And the politics play a big role, and the money too. The money's got more expensive, just like how it has on the commercial side. So it's
So
challenging, but
you said something really important though. You've got 17 deals in the pipeline. What do you say to the person who's been trying to get started in real estate investing during the boom years and now in a questionable year? What do you say to them to get them to see that they can do it too? Because you're doing it outside of the country. There's people that live in Texas, that live in
right,
Florida, that are going, "Oh, I can't find deals. I'm struggling." And you're like in another country doing it at a pretty high volume. What do you say
right,
to
right.
them?
Well, look, it's interesting because it all comes down, I would say, for those people, if you can master sales, sales is so wide, right? But if you can master sales in one niche, right? Whether it's real estate, whether it's health insurance, whether it's anything else, if you're selling, advisory services, brokerage services, right? I would say, first of all, get amazing at sales, like professional level, right? Like hear yourself, record your calls, see how good you do, right? So you want to really analyze yourself, be self-aware of yourself. Like, hey, what's keeping me from doing deals, right? So I would say that's number one. Number two is marketing, right? It all would come down to marketing, right? If they're not doing deals, it's probably because they're not doing a lot of marketing. Because whenever you stop marketing,
100%.
or it's like, where are the deals? Where are the deals at? Yeah, but what's your marketing like? Like, do you have are you sending people to properties? Like, how many properties are you going to look at a day? Like, or, obviously we don't look at any, but how many people are we sending there? How many people are you offering to meet at their property? How many contracts are you writing up, right? Like that person, those folks who aren't doing deals, like, did you write up 3 contracts this week or 5? Write up one a day, write up a contract a day. And then, it's that consistency as well. And then ultimately, it's really caring about the folks that you're wanting to negotiate with and buy their property, because if they feel like you actually care, then they care about you, right? Because nobody cares until they know how much you care. And then lastly, I would say be interesting as well. Like, be someone that they you're hard to forget.
Yes.
Then it still comes down to sales and storytelling and how you've had these experiences and have you've helped these other people and you've seen this in the market and how you can get all the work done for cheap. And then building that trust, that confidence, and then being very consistent with your actions. And then if I had to put one more point, is be aggressive, because at the end of the day, nobody's coming to save you. A deal's not going to land in your lap. Maybe from your follow up and your efforts, people will call you back. Hey, I'm ready to sell. But that still took a lot of you being aggressive and you being on the offense. So always be on the offense and know that whatever's in your control, look at that and put effort into that.
That
So.
is so good. There's a lot of people who've gotten educated, they've studied up, they've gotten the information, and they go, I can't find deals. I'm not doing deals. And my first question is, okay, so what are you doing for marketing and how many offers have you made? And if their answer isn't a large number for the number of offers that they made, I know that they're never going to get a deal at that same pace. Let me ask you this. How do you feel about offering low? I mean, a lot of times people are saying, prices are just overpriced. Sellers want too much for their property.
I would say what I tell my team is that we don't want to give offers, but we want to know how much they want first. You know what I mean? Like I kind of want to understand like the way we lay out the conversation is we want to understand their goals, needs, and wants. And a goal and a want and a need is like, okay, you giving me a number. Like part of this is me understanding, where you're at, because sometimes you would have offered more. You would have offered a lot more. And sometimes you're like, really, like, did I listen to that correctly? Like, did you want how much for this? Right? So I would say first that, and then when it comes down to giving an offer, yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, you have to be in range with what's going to work with you, because unfortunately, right, in the commercial and the residential, deals fall out, right? And usually based on number one, price, or number two, that they didn't disclose something, like something wasn't
Sure.
disclosed and it just changes the deal. And then number three, obviously, so people get cold feet, or you know I don't want to sell anymore, I'm not selling, I got a better offer. So if you do your hard work up front, which is like building that trust, that connection, deals are going to fall out less. Once you have that trust and that connection, people are going to disclose to you, hey, it needs a new roof. Well, you don't want to wait until you put on the market to know it needs a new roof. And then if you overpaid for it, well, I mean, sure, you can go back and renegotiate and things like that, but you don't want to bank on that. That can
Right.
happen, and we've had to have to go back and do that. But that's what you really want to look at. So if that means giving a low offer, I mean, the way I see it, if a house is worth 400,000, just to say, 400,000, I offer them 200,000. They're like, that's a low offer. I'm like, $200,000. Most people won't make that in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, right? That's 200,000. So, I mean, you can find ways around that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you have to work with numbers that work, because if not, anybody can give any offer. But if it doesn't work, and I tell them, look, someone offered me more. I'm like, an offer is just an offer. What you want to do is actually close the property. Someone call you right now for you $500,000, right? But will they actually close? Will they actually come through? Do they know what they're doing? Will they put up earnest money? Will they go visit the house? Have they done inspections? So do they understand the market? Do they understand the financing? So, you kind of want to use all your tools to be able to justify it why your offer is what it is.
I get the feeling that some people, I don't get the feeling, I know, like, because it's pretty clear that a lot of people are afraid to offer a lot less than the seller's asking. And it's almost like they feel like they're going to be insulting, or they're worried about hurting somebody's feelings, or looking bad, or looking like they don't know what they're talking about. And so low offers, when I say low ball offers, I mean low compared to what the seller's asking. But there's no way you're ever going to get deals done that make any sense if you're just waiting for somebody to ask a low price. It happens. Like you said,
Right.
sometimes they just ask for a low number because that's what they need to get to walk. And in that case, it's a home run, but it's pretty rare. Usually they ask a number that's out of range of what you can pay. And it takes you making an offer of what you can pay. I think you're right. You have to pay a price that makes sense for you and is going to make sense for the overall transaction. Offering close to what they're asking just to get it tied up is a pretty risky move, especially, in novations. If you're spending some money, you could end up having to renegotiate that, and you don't want to bank on that. So I just love what you're saying. I think people just need to get some guts and make offers at where it makes sense and not worry about the ask price, and just know how you're justifying, like you said, how to justify the price that you are paying. And if it's a number that they can take, they'll take it. But you've got to do that in volume. I mean, you said you got
Exactly.
roughly 17 deals in the pipeline. How many offers does it take to get to 17 contracts?
Man, we're at this all day long, 4 people all day long, running marketing, a lot of follow-ups, a lot of visits. Um, it's call it 30 offers a day, call it
There
30
you go.
offer. I mean, I want everybody to get an offer. Like if they genuinely do want to sell, give them an offer. The worst things they're gonna say, go F yourself, and you say, okay, thank you, God bless. And that's it. You can just bless people whenever they're that's what I tell my team too. Imagine if you bless 30 people a day. Like your
I
life
like
would
that.
be more, yeah, your life would be more blessed. I was like, when you're genuinely speaking to someone, genuinely bless them. Like let's say you bless 10 people genuinely, you wanted, God to do, to be in their life and to their life to go well. What's gonna happen? I mean, you're gonna feel better. Sure, they may not want to do it, they might not want to move forward, but things change all the time. They might call you back, hey, that offer didn't work for me. God bless, save my number. Let's keep in touch. I know it's far away, but at the end of the day, it's because we are in this every day. Like we're living our lives. So that's what I tell them. Like, live your best life. You're spending time speaking to that old lady or that man in the mobile home in the trailer, right? Um, let's say, for example, I just think of one now that it was in Florida and the guy was in a mobile home. We saved his car from repo and we gave him, gosh, I mean, maybe like 20,000 before closing, but he reduced the price like probably 35,000.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So like, I didn't lose that money. I knew title was clear. I was just waiting on that buyer to get financed. We gave him like 25K up front. He reduced it 35,000,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, that's kind of a risky move too, right in the beginning. But you actually want to help the people, and if an offer doesn't work out, then that's fine. I've had people where the offer works great, everything's, and they give us referrals. Hey, talk to this person, talk to this person. So,
You
it's just
just got to
being out
make the
there.
offers, right? I mean, like, you've
Exactly.
got to make the offers. And I like how you look at that too. You're not lowballing them in the sense of you're trying to steal something from them or take something from them. You're offering what you can pay. It just happens to be significantly less than what they're asking for. And a lot of times it's a number that will work for them, but you've got to make the offers. It's a numbers game, is what I'm hearing from you. It's volume. Think about that. Andreas
Yeah,
just said that he's got 17 deals in the pipeline and he's doing, call it 20 to 30 offers a day. That's pretty impressive, number one, but it's a numbers game and you just
it
don't
is.
take it personal. You tell them what you can pay and you move on. So that's great. Question for you. You know, how do you look at the US now that you don't live here anymore?
I first and foremost look at it with, it with love and respect. It's still when I hear that U.S. anthem, I mean, it'll get me, right? I'll feel those goosebumps and that love and that admiration and strength. So I love it, and the people is spectacular. I've met people from all over the world. It's just like they have that sparkle in their eye, right? From another perspective, right? From not such a positive perspective, it's I feel a little bit of pain and hurt for, what some people go through because sort of call it they're still in the matrix,
Yeah.
right? That term. So, they're controlled by the media, they're controlled by the food corporations. Like I remember you posting, I think you went last year to Europe, right? That was last year.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, all those people are thin and skinny and they're living better lives. So I feel pain for them too because there's like a lot of health issues and psychological issues and division. um But overall, my sentiment is still an amazing opportunity. It's still, a land of great opportunity. Everybody wants to be there. It's the number one still. And,
That's right.
there's a lot of opportunity, for real estate, for businesses, for innovation, for technology. So it's love and respect, but I wish people would wake up a little bit more. I wish people weren't so profit driven always, right, with these food corporations and the pharmaceuticals and things like that. And I wish people would would remember that God is always with us and don't forget about God. Like think about everything that was in the Bible and how God wanted to live our lives, and like let's look at our lives today. Is this what God wanted?
Yeah.
So don't forget about him, especially in the schools and the every day to day. I know life can be busy and things like that, and you're hustling and you're bustling, but I feel like we need God more than ever in the US, and that'll spread throughout the whole world.
Yeah, I think, freedom is an incredible thing, but with freedom comes responsibility. And the problem is when there is freedom, both freedom of choice and legal freedom, right? In a country, you can take it whatever direction you want to go. So as the morals drop, so do the laws and so does everything else. And that's what we've seen here is, because because there is a lot of freedom, uh, you can say and believe anything you want, which is a great, great thing. But if the morals of the people decline, so do the laws, so does everything else. And so you're starting to see that in certain parts of the country more than others. The morals are now changing the laws to make it a less and less attractive place to live. And obviously, it's a downward spiral. So I agree with you. Let's shift back to business really quick. I know you're really heavy on training. I mean,
Yes.
you're really heavy on training your acquisition guys, especially. What does that training look like, to keep them sharp and to keep improving them?
Sure. I'll give you five things. I think I got five good ones in me. Number one, can they teach it back to you? Right? I mean, I think that's been proven. Like, hey, can you teach this back to me? Like, what does this mean? Walk me through it. Like, how would I understand it? Right? So I think that would be number one. Number two is just like on a baseball or football or basketball, right? They're looking at their tapes of like, okay, what did I do? Did I jump too high? How did I miss that pass? Did I make a wrong turn? So going using some AI and hearing back their calls and breaking down the calls with them together.
Hmm.
Number three is they really have to know how to connect and create a bond with somebody, right? Because we've all met those people where it's like we meet them for a day or two, or like a night, and it's like we feel like we know them. They maybe went to the same school or from the same town or like the same sports team or went to the same high school. So how to build that, so to say it, right? Pun intended, how to manufacture that,
Yeah.
right? How to build that, manufacture the relationship. Like, how do you do that, right? So they have to know how to storytell and things like that. So really, the the EQ, right? Have that EQ and be aware of those things. Number four, I would also say like put it on your calendar, like how to actually set up appointments, how to advance people, how to glue it, right? Because without an appointment, if you and I didn't have this appointment, we wouldn't be doing this. If you and I didn't connect, we wouldn't be doing this, right? So how to actually
Right.
have someone on a calendar and keep them accountable to appointments. I think that's critical, but it's like, hey, yeah, they said yes to the offer. Okay, well, when's the appointment? Like, when are we going to be doing this?
Yep.
And then number five is I like to do team trainings every day in the morning on different subjects. Hi, how are we comping this? What's going on with the interest rates? Let's go over these news articles so you can tell people Thanksgiving is coming up. Are you wishing them Thanksgiving? How to story tell again, different things, um, specific parts, what's different types of questions, right? If I'll read something in a book, hey, I want to share this piece of content with you guys. Like, let's go over, let's break down what this person is saying. How are you picking up your call? How are you texting them? What are you saying in your text? Why don't we try Chat GPT here? Let's use this tool, right? Different sorts of tools and techniques, like in the morning. We can go over, you know, the title companies, right? Here's our addresses. We'll break down specific deals. Hey, so different sorts of trainings that have to do within the script and we do it as a team together. So those are some ways that, people can really scale up.
Yeah, I know that you're heavy on the education and the training side, which is really probably a little secret sauce of yours that's given you so much success is you're investing a lot of time and a lot of effort into seeing that these people are very knowledgeable about what they're doing. And, something that you mentioned, EQ, it's a very difficult thing to train people on and teach people on because understanding people's emotions and being able to, I guess you could say, manufacture the emotions is not easy. That's something that the best salespeople are good at is they can pull on the heartstrings a little bit. They can read people's emotions and understand what they're coming from, not just what they're saying, but tones and read between the lines. I mean, that's not easy to learn. Anything that you would say has been an aha moment for your team or maybe even for you when it comes to sales skills
Aha moment.
or a big
Just
thing that you figured out and you now are very thorough in teaching people?
yeah, I would say a lot of people, sales, it comes down to a series of questions, right? But what the part I think people leave out as well is how do you share details about yourself? Like how do you get that person to know and feel like they actually know you? Like that's hard, right? But if
Yep,
you're aware of that, like once we became aware of that, like I have to tell them things about myself. I got to tell them things about my childhood, how I grew up here. I've been to these restaurants. The title company is located here. It's next to that church. Like tell a story about yourself as well. It's not just like, hey, I'm gonna interview this seller. So it's kind of like making that organic connection where it's like it doesn't feel forced, but like they actually know things about you. I think that's critical because a lot of people just like, okay, ask them the right questions. You ask the right questions, this, that. But they at the end of the day, they're gonna buy something based off you. Like a lot of the times people will sell us for less money because of how the way they feel about us. So it's like really having like ask yourself, does this person know who I am? Because if not, how are they gonna sell me their three, four, $500,000 home? Or it could be, $1 million home in California, right? So it's like actually making them feel like, hey, I know what this person stands for. I can use politics. I can talk about Trump. I can talk about Biden. So even me just giving commentary on those things, I can talk about how I worked out, how I went to the park, how I walked my dog, how I was at a barbecue, like all these little things, they start to formulate an image about you. And I feel like a lot of people miss that,
for
and
sure.
that's critical. Yeah.
Yeah, you're basically saying that they have to know you as much as you know them on a personal level. Like you've got to actually build a real relationship. And if it feels one sided, they're not going to be as motivated to sell to you and they're not going to feel like they're doing business with someone that they know and like. And I think that's phenomenal advice right there. I think one thing that we need to work on within my company and my acquisition team is that, they have a seller questionnaire, they understand what they need to get from the seller and they listen a lot. They listen to the seller and hear their stories and get to know them, but I don't know that we're necessarily giving them as much real personal information back so that it feels mutual. It has to be a genuine conversation and not just an interview.
Exactly. Yeah. Because if when someone takes interest in you, they're going to ask you questions and they're going to want to know. There may not be that opportunity because, again, it could be a cold call. It could be something out of the blue. They might be embarrassed. They might be going through some problems. But if you start to throw that in there, if I tell you, hey, Mario, I was in this place in Sarasota, last week. You'll be really, I've gone there. Like you don't even like your interest is going to be normal, organic because it's somewhere you've gone, somewhere and so we'll start to build a relationship that way.
Yeah, it's good. Andreas, this has been fun, man. I learn so much from people that are in other industries than me and other property types than me. Like I think you just made me a ton of money today. And I hope
I
the
love
listeners
that.
pick that up too, not only from the novation standpoint and being able to use that strategy in another property type. But a lot of the training and tips that you gave on communicating with sellers and things like that, it all translates into other businesses and other property types as well. So I love what you're doing. And I'm actually looking forward to, I told Star, my wife, we need to go down and visit him. I definitely want to check out Colombia, and I think it'd be a lot of fun to hang out with you down there. Obviously, we've hung out here in the United States multiple times, but I need to come to your world and go tear up Colombia.
Absolutely, man. It'd be a pleasure to host you guys down here, show you guys around, enjoy, have a great time, great food. So I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to that.
I'm looking forward to it too. I gotta get over a little bit of a hump here with the baby coming up, but after that, we're gonna be looking at coming down to visit you. So, Andreas, number one, how can people get a hold of you? And number two, who should get a hold of you to do either business or learn from you?
Yeah, absolutely. You guys can follow me on Instagram. That's where I'm most active. And that's my first, that's Rio. And then my first name, Andreas, my last name, Olaya. I'm sure you can leave it down in the comments below or in the description. And then who should reach out to me, man? Anybody that's interested in real estate, we can do joint venture deals. We can partner. I'm happy to get on calls. People that want to grow, and then we can add value to each other. People who want to come down to Colombia, if anybody's coming down to Colombia, I love to connect with people. That's one of my things. When we talked a few weeks back, it's just like you never know what door can open. Like have conversations, meet people, take that meeting, see where there's synergy, and that's one of my things that I really like to do in life. Just meet other people. So yeah, guys, I'm an open book, so reach out to me for sure.
Andreas is a rock star, man. I thank you again for doing this. Appreciate it. Guys, thanks for being on, and pay attention because we got another good one coming out soon. Take care.
Hey, Mario, thanks so much. God bless. Take care. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Thanks for listening. I hope you got out of this as much as I did. I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a 5-star review so we can reach more people. Jump over to mariodattilo.net and find out what else I got going on. Be sure to connect with me on all the socials, and I'll see you on next week's show.